right, welcome to the debut edition of the Jeff Mayweather Radio Show on ATG Radio. I'm Alexz Yzerman. I'm joined by Jeff Mayweather. I'd like to send a shout-out and thanks to Frank Staya for allowing us on his network. We're pleased to be here, and hopefully we'll offer some more entertainment to the boxing fans out there. Obviously, it's a Jeff Mayweather show, so welcome to Jeff Mayweather. Jeff, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm good, and so?
Not too bad. I think I got busted on air there talking to my dog, so if anyone's wondering who I was talking about being cute, it was my dog. Anyway, we're going to be joined here in a few minutes by a former world champion, Greg Haugen. Looking forward to him. Always interesting guy to talk to. So we'll be joining him by him in about 15 minutes. Before that, Jeff, I kind of want to play devil's advocate. There's a couple topics I'd like to talk to you about, and I know you're going to be on the opposite side of them, so I want to get your defense of them and your thoughts of them, and see what you have to say about it. So the first thing is I know you love talking about Floyd. It seems that's all you ever talk about. So I want to talk about Floyd a little bit. Recently Manny Pacquiao said, he agreed to a 55-45 split. Any concessions as far as drug testing, said he'll do whatever kind of testing, including the day of the fight and that kind of thing. Still, it appears there's going to be no fight, at least as of right now. Your thoughts on that? And, it's kind of turned the tide in a lot of people's opinions as far as them thinking, okay, well, now that Manny's given in, why is Floyd not wanting to fight? So some people are saying that he is scared or doesn't want to fight. Your thoughts on that?
Well, it's definitely not about Floyd being scared, or it was never about Floyd being scared or Manny being scared, to be honest. But at the end of the day, if I do way more numbers than you, I'm going to be the one that's going to be dictating. You're not going to dictate. You're just coming off of a loss. How are you going to dictate anything to me?
But that's the thing, though, is that Floyd already did dictate that, and Manny gave in. Before it was 50-50 split, the drug testing. Well, Floyd's side dictated the financial terms and the drug testing. So now that Manny's conceded, Floyd's side already did dictate it. So how is Manny now dictating something?
No, Manny's conceded. Manny's conceded because Manny just lost. Whether he lost for real or not, Manny's been devalued. So no, Manny shouldn't even consider even asking for 50-50 or even 45. He has to take whatever Floyd give him.
So is that what you're saying the hang-up is now? Is still the money split? Because like I said, going back, he's not dictating anything. He's given in. And certainly I can see where if he thought 50-50 before, certainly now 45% coming off the losses, obviously. But so what's keeping it now?
No, but you're saying he's giving in, but he's not giving in. He's not giving in when a guy asks for, basically just a 5% more split when he just lost. Not only did he just lose, he just lost, and plus, not only that, he doesn't come close to the number that Floyd do. So, basically, at the end of the day, it's a business, and that's the bottom line. The bottom line is that if I do more numbers than you, and not only that, I've been undefeated for 16 years, and I've been the most dominant fighter on the planet for the last 16 years. I gotta be the one to call the shots. Because realistically, like I said, there was a time when Manny actually, the fight was negotiated, and Manny was happy to take whatever Floyd gave him, and Floyd offered him $40 million. And yeah, and Manny decided he didn't want to take that, but that was behind the scenes. He wanted to take it, but when Bob Arum got involved, of course, Bob Arum flipped everything and turned it into, a war of, 50-50. It had to be 50-50. But and it shouldn't be 50-50, even if, just because of the fact that the numbers they do. Don't get me wrong, Manny had a seriously hot run. But Manny haven't done nothing worthwhile since the fight with Shane Mosley.
All right, so now basically, we've heard from Leonard Ellaby basically saying, that like you said, Manny's not going to dictate the terms, but we haven't heard them come back with something to say what's going to take to get the fight done. So what is it going to take now, in your opinion?
Well, basically,
60-40.
Yeah, the fight is going to be made. If Manny isn't with Bob come the end of the year, the fight's going to be made.
Yeah.
It's that simple. The fight's going to be made, and don't get me wrong, Manny may get more than he was going to get. He's not going to get 50-50, of course, but he probably get more than $40 million.
Right. Now Larry Merchant was on First Take this morning with Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith, and basically it said, he doesn't think that Floyd's scared, scared or anything, and he thinks that, he would definitely be a favorite against Manny, but that he's more worried, and this is what a lot of people say, that he's more worried about, the 0 losses in his record. My contention is, it's certainly understandable if you have 0 losses, especially when you get in the, the tail end of your career like Floyd, you certainly got to start considering wanting to finish your career undefeated, since so few have done it. But my thing is even if he finishes with no losses, if he never fights Manny, I think that's going to override the 0 losses, whether he would have won or lost that fight. Do you think that's a huge concern? I think everybody admits that it's a concern of him. He wants to be undefeated. But how do you think, 0 losses would affect his career and his legacy if he did never fight Manny?
Don't get me wrong. I think that it'll have an effect on his legacy, of course, because, at one point in time, it'll always be a question of who would have won, and and why the fight didn't happen. When you had two guys that basically in their prime and were in the 2 hottest commodities in the sport at the same time, but never faced one another. And don't get me wrong. I don't think that. I think it'll be a question mark, and as a part of Floyd's legacy. But at the end of the day, Floyd doesn't necessarily mean Manny. But this will be, this will be the stamp of approval that basically says that you were the best, completely the best fighter of your era and your generation. And and so in that sense, it is important.
All right. Now let me ask you this. I don't even happen to think that at this point in his career that Manny presents the greatest challenge to Floyd. In your opinion, of anyone out there that's a conceivable fight for him right now, who do you think would pose the greatest threat to him, whether it be, a Canelo, Sergio Martinez, a Manny, whoever? Who do you think would actually, at this point, pose the greatest threat for him?
Of the 3, I would say...
Or of anyone. I just threw a couple names out there. Of anyone that he could conceivably fight, that could possibly a fight be made, who would you think would be the most difficult?
At this point, I would have to say probably Martinez, and that would only be because of the weight. But
right.
If they were to fight at 154 pounds, no, we wouldn't have a problem. We wouldn't have a problem with Martinez either. But of course, he's not going to fight Martinez at 60. Well, he's not even 154 pounder. Well, 147 pounder. It just happens to have the talent enough to go up and win titles at that weight.
Right. All right. Well, I want to turn the subject here a little bit and talk about your fighter, Celestino Caballero. Of course, he's relinquishing his WBA title. All kinds of trouble with him. It's just been seemed like a career thing for him. Difficulty getting fights, and it's just carried on. Unfortunately, now as he again gets in the twilight of his career, it's much more glaring. Not being able to get a fight. No matter whose fault it was with the Garcia thing, with Samson boxing and the issue there, and then now him refusing to fight the mandatory challenger because of, money issues and that kind of thing, and not getting to fight Chris John. My thing is this. Now he has no title. He is a huge threat to anybody. How can he possibly be better off from where he is right now than had he just gone through with anything else that was mentioned?
Well, the one thing is this, is that he's already been contacted by the WBC, and he's going to be put in at the number 1 spot within a month. So even Ponce de Leon said that he doesn't want to fight him. Either he's going to fight him or he's going to relinquish the title. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's a lot of things going on with Celestino, and I mean, I really feel bad for him because, I mean, all he wants to do is fight. But you know, a lot of it is now it's kind of like it's a battle and it's a war on who actually do he belong to because he signed 2 contracts. You know, Floyd bought his contract, and while Floyd was locked up, 50 Cent signed him to a different contract. And so now, you know, and that's right now that's the entanglement. What's going on with the fight, you know, itself, you know. So, I mean, of course, Celestino never had intention of signing with 50 Cent because, I mean, he wanted to sign with Floyd, just like everyone else did. They wanted to sign with Floyd. They didn't want to sign with 50 Cent, but, you know, I mean, 50 Cent, I mean, you know, they were forming, the money team, and so he did get Celestino to sign a new contract. But at the same time, I mean, you're signing a fighter that's already signed. So, but I mean, there's still, you know, so there's going to be some, you know, of course, some legal entanglements that have to be squared away before they can move forward on anything. So, I mean, in that sense, I mean, I really feel bad for him because he's been here, he's been working very hard, and he's been ready to fight, you know. But basically, I sit down and talk to him today, and I just told him, I said, man, let this situation take care of itself, and then, you know, go back home, visit your family. I mean, I know he misses kids and stuff, you know, and just go back and until you hear word from, you know, what happened with this situation, and let's fight. But like I said, I mean, he's already going to be in position to fight because, like I said, he's going to be number 1 in the WBC. So it won't be long before he fights for a title again.
So now looking back, I mean, is there anything that you wish he had done different? I mean, despite the way it's all turned out, and you know, and possibly the WBC things turn out better, do you wish, you know, that he had done something to make the Garcia fight happen, or even the mandatory fight he had this year turned down? I mean, is there anything that he could have done different that you wish he would have?
Well, I mean, I think the Garcia fight, it never had nothing to do with Celestino. It had something to do with Mikey Garcia because, you know, I mean, if Celestino's the world champion, he could be able to fight wherever he wants to. How are you going to be contender? You're going to dictate where this man fights, you know. And I mean, and then, you know, and they had a huge purse bid, and you know, and then like I said, then, you know, I think Sampson dropped the ball because, I mean, he was lying from day one about the fight even happening. I mean, this guy had dates that wasn't even. He had dates where they weren't even real dates. You know, and so I mean, all Celestino did was train. He's just a fighter. You know, I mean, he got pissed off. He got pissed off at Sampson because he really never wanted to deal with Sampson again. You know, and that's because, you know, whatever happened with them in the past. You know, I mean, Sampson, he comes after me, talking about me. Dude, I ain't never said a word about you. If anything, I was trying to help you to help the fight happen. You know, but that's a whole nother story, though. You know, so I mean, I'm not even gonna get into the Sampson stuff, but like I said, you know, I mean, he dropped the ball, and basically, I mean, Celestino was forced sitting around waiting once again, and then while he was waiting, while Floyd was incarcerated, you know, this other deal that actually was supposed to, you know, come to realization never did, and because it never did, I mean, he found, you know, Celestino finds himself with 2 contracts, and now they got to go to court and, you know, rectify the situation for what it really is.
So now, best case scenario, when do you see him fighting again? You know, you mentioned WBC, so best case scenario, what can we look forward to as far as his career?
Well, I mean, I think that whoever going to be WBC champion at that time, they're going to be forced to fight him, and Celestino is still a force to be reckoned with. You know, I mean, of course, he's getting to the point in his career where he may have no more than 1 or 2 years left. So we want to make the most of it. And, I mean, I think that once this situation is taken care of, I think that he's going to probably be as busy as possible. You might even see him to fight maybe 3 to 4 times a year. Just to, because, I mean, he's missed a lot of time, with all these, it seems like he's bad luck slip-up right now. It seems like every time he turn around and he do something, he feels like he's doing something right, it ends up blowing up in his face. But it's not his fault, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, that's my whole thing is that, no matter, whose fault it is or whatever, with him being inactive for this long at this stage in his career, it just seems like such a huge mistake. Now, with him not taking the fight, for $90,000 against an opponent he wasn't, looking forward to, was that more of a case of, that he felt disrespected by the WBA and what he was being offered because he didn't get to fight Chris John, or is the fact that $90,000, while to me it might be a nice chunk of money for a guy like Celestino who, maybe hopes to get, 2 or 3 marquee fights before he retires, it's just too much threat in a fight for, that low profile for that little bit of money. Whereas if he lost, obviously, then, his hopes for, the big fights down the road would be lost.
Well, I mean, it's one of those situations in which, I mean, you're kind of backed into a corner, but at the same time, I mean, unfortunately, the WBA is, they never allowed him to fight Chris John, he was Chris John's mandatory, and it never happened. And then all of a sudden, this fight comes up with, I don't even know the guy's name, but anyway, with this guy. And then they want to force him to fight this guy for, a third of the money that he made, when he was in his last defense. And then fight the guy in his home country. So, I mean, yeah, I understood him relinquishing the title that way. And, especially knowing that, he's going to be the number 1 contender next month in the WBC. I mean, it's worth it in that sense. I mean, if that wasn't the case, I think it would be a bad idea to not take the fight. But I think that at least in this situation, as long as he's been champion and, he's been a good champion, and he's willing to fight anyone, anywhere, I think that, you don't want to get to the end of your career. You just got your highest, your highest payday, and now you're going to get what you was getting probably fighting for the title. Not let alone being champion 5 times, then to be, that's an insult to even, to ask him to fight for that amount of money.
All right. Still waiting for Greg Haugen to call in. He'll be joining us momentarily. Right now I do want to welcome to the show contributor to Pro Boxing Insider, the I guess she liked the name, the superstar diva, Miss Carla J. Carla, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going, Jeff? How's it going, Alex?
Good. How are you?
Oh, everything's great, thank you.
Carla, we were just talking about Celestino Caballero and his situation, relinquishing the WBA title, and apparently he's got to possibly move into the WBC. Jeff, obviously you're saying that he can move over to WBC, be made number 1 challenger, fight with Ponce de Leon can be made. Now here's my thing. Obviously, Celestino just didn't fight his number 1 challenger. The Garcia fight never happened. De Leon has said that he has no interest in fighting Palanchine again. So how confident are you that, it sounds easy, you go to the WBC, you're number 1 contender, you get to fight. How confident are you that could happen? And are you worried that, some snags can catch up with them there?
Well, the one thing is this, is that boxing is a business just like anything else. And Floyd is the biggest commodity in the sport. And Floyd represents Celestino, and Floyd represents the WBC. He has 7 WBC belts. So, I think that, that he can make that happen. And I think that, in all honesty, the WBC, like when we went to the convention, they had already asked Celestino back then when we was at the convention. that they wanted him to represent them and fight for their belt. And so hopefully now, this can happen.
How big of a slap to the face do you think that'd be for the WBA, considering they're Panamanian-based, to see, the Panama's greatest current fighter be under another organization?
Well, I mean, sometimes you just got to do what you have to do. I mean, I think that the WBA has been, it's been great for Celestino, but, at the same time, I mean, toward the end of his career, I mean, here's a guy, Chris John, who's sit on the title for a year, haven't defended it, haven't done anything, and actually, Celestino's been his mandatory. So, I mean, at the same time they've done great for him, they've also did bad. They did injustice for him in that case. So it's one of those situations. You take the good with the bad and you just move on.
Now, I'm going to turn this over to Carl in a second, but I just have a question here, too, about De Leon. Now, De Leon, his first loss was to Pellantine, a fight that was dominated by Celestino. But yet he still expressed that he had no interest in taking the fight. Why, in your opinion, would De Leon not want that fight? I mean, you think he'd want to avenge the loss? You think it's more of a case of, he knows that Pellantine has his number, being as tall and as lanky as he is, that it's a fight that he just wants no part of?
Well, I think it's a matter of him just not wanting no part of it. I mean, Celestino beat De Leon when he was at his peak, when he was at his complete best. So, I mean, and to be honest, Doc De Leon ain't have the fighter he used to be. But, I mean, Celestino is he's still a viable fighter, and I mean, even at his age now, I mean, he's getting better. I don't know how much longer, but I mean, he's getting better, and I mean, he's winning these fights a whole lot easier than he probably did in the past because he's fighting a whole different style now. And so I just think that, Ponce de Leon, I think that he realizes that as well, and plus, anytime you're a fighter and you just say, I don't want to fight that guy, that's a sense of fear because as a fighter, you should be able to beat it just like Celestino. Celestino fight anyone, anywhere.
Right. It's almost like like I said, you think you want to avenge your loss, and and he's kind of pulling the same thing that Juan Monteros did. That he's on to bigger and better things. But De Leon, certainly doesn't have the name recognition or the market value that others do. He's certainly no better than Pellantine at this point. So for him not to want that fight, just to me shows that he doesn't feel that he's a good matchup.
I agree.
But I do want to welcome to the show, first time ever on the Jeff Mayweather radio show, PBI contributor Eliud Vasquez. Eliud, welcome to the show. You're on with Jeff and Carla and I.
Thanks for having me, guys. How you doing, Jeff, Carla,
Good.
Jody?
Hey, how's it going, Elliot?
Good.
All right, still waiting for Greg Hogan to call in. I hope to get him here shortly. Carla, so we're running over here a little time, so we're going to wing it from here. So what's been on your mind, and what do you want to talk about with Jeff?
You know what? I think that everyone pretty much knows what's on my mind. I've tweeted about it a lot over the course of the last, day or so. It's the California State Athletic Commission's upholding Antonio Tarver's 1-year suspension. I'd like to know what Jeff's thoughts are there, and if he had to give any advice, what would he say that Antonio should do from here?
So I'm not understanding. They
actually upheld his 1-year suspension after the failed drug test, and that was on yesterday after the hearing. What would you, if you had to give him any advice, at 43 years old, what would you say that he should do from now, going forward?
I mean, to be honest, pretty much it's time to call it a day, and walk away from the sport. I mean, he had a great career. And it's unfortunate that, I'm not sure if this getting caught doing whatever it was that happened, if it even cost him his commentating job with Showtime, because, that would be the ideal thing for him to do, just walk away from the sport and just walk right into that job. But I don't know if that job is still available. But, I don't see too much left for him to stay around. I'm sure he can probably maybe fight maybe a 100 Ward or something like that, but You know, I mean, he's already been beaten by Chad Dawson, so, I mean, chances are Andre Ward will beat him as well. You know, so, I mean, I don't really see no reason for him to stay. I mean, at that age, you know, and hopefully he's made a lot of money. Hopefully he's done well with it.
Hey,
One of the
Jeff,
things that he was a comeback, so I think that was, you know, that was part of the master plan, you know, for him to make a comeback. And and as far as the commentating job is concerned, what are your thoughts about someone that failed a drug test continuing to be a commentator of the sport?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of, it's one of those situations in which you punish someone, but at the same time, there's other people that hasn't been punished. I mean, you have Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., who's been busted more than once. And he haven't, you know, only thing he's ever faced is this last thing. He got penalized for getting caught smoking weed. But he didn't get penalized for getting caught with PEDs. You know, and there's other fighters that did it as well. You know, and there's other fighters that did it and got a commentating job. So, you know, I mean, don't do it for one and don't do it for the other.
Hey, Jeff, do you think that the penalties for something like smoking weed should be the same as, you know, getting busted for steroids?
I don't know. I don't smoke weed, so.
But, I mean, you know, one's obviously performance enhancer, you know, and whereas, you know, pot's not exactly a performance enhancer. Do you think the penalties should be the same, or do you think they should, you know, maybe be a little less for non-performance enhancing drugs?
It probably should be. It should probably be a little less because, I mean, I never known weed to make you no better. But then again, I never smoked no weed, so I don't know.
Well, yeah, I know, Jeff, you're strictly into the more heavy stuff. That's well known around these parts.
Yeah.
Elliot, I want to bring you in here. Nobody spends more time, I think, reading about, talking about boxing. You know, what's going on lately that's really got your interest going?
Well, this past Saturday, I attended the Vasquez Oquendo fight here in Puerto Rico. Great fight. Calderon also fought Moises Fuentes, and Calderon suffered a TKO in the 5th round. And the thing that got me is Calderon, is this the end of the line for Ivan Calderon? You know, he spent a lot of years in the 105, 108 area. A legend, future Hall of Famer, and that's what pretty much what I'm talking about right now. And a couple more things with the situation with Antonio Tarver. I mean, if he's going to get suspended for a year, the guy's about 44 years old, or 43. I think that, and he's already inactive. You know, he only has probably one fight a year. I agree with Jeff that he should retire, hang up the gloves. He had a great career. Let's see if he gets to keep his job with Showtime, and he could just fall back on that. But I mean, I don't know.
Okay. Jeff, what are your thoughts on guys like Calderon and Tarver and, you know, like Evander Holyfield, Roy Jones Jr., these great fighters with, you know, incredible careers that, you know, just can't seem to hang them up? You know, A, what do you think it does to their legacy? Does it hurt him at all, or will Roy Jones be remembered for, you know, what he was in his prime? Or, you know, does it hurt him a lot? And why is it that some guys, you know, like the Lennox Lewises can walk away when they're still relatively on top? You know, guys like you know, some of the greatest fighters ever that walked away when they're still on top of the game. How can they do it when others can't?
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, boxing,
I called you one of the greatest ever. You gotta give me a little credit for that.
Okay. So I think that boxing is a sport that, you know, it's hard to walk away. I mean, it's one of those things that, I mean, it grabs you, especially when it's almost like you're like an entertainer. You're on the stage. When you're on that stage, people calling your name, once the fight's over with, everybody want a piece of you, everybody want to be a part of whatever it is you're doing. You know what I mean? That can be, contagious. And it can be something that, you know, extremely hard to walk away from. I mean, you know, Tarver, he ain't the first one. I mean, don't get me wrong. And I mean, and like you said, I mean, certain fighters, it completely ruins their legacy. And some fighters, it's almost like they get a pass, and people still remember the good. I mean, because you don't hear people talking about Sugar Leonard as many times that he came back and destroyed his legacy as well. You know, I mean, he got stopped by Hector Camacho, you know, but still, you know, I mean, nobody talks about that because, you know, Ray Leonard, he was the darling of the Olympics. You know, he was a great fighter, you know, throughout his career, you know, and, you know, basically, and everybody loved him, you know. And, with Roy Jones, it's like a love-hate relationship, you know, because it's one of those situations with Roy. It's like Roy always talks in third term, you know, and basically, you know, so, sometimes, you know, he rubbed people the wrong way, but I don't think it's just that. I think that, you know, at some point in time, how many times are you going to go in there? You used to be a great fighter, one of the best fighters in the planet at one time, to just go in there. Now you're losing to guys that, that can, you know, that you would probably knock out in one round when you was at your peak, you know. It's just sad. It's sad to even watch him now.
Okay. Still working on getting Greg Haugen here. Hopefully he'll be joining us shortly. But we got another guy that we got the whole PBI staff here. Chris Guns is joining us. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alex. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Chris.
I think this is a good topic for us to kind of cover that we can all kind of chime in on. We're waiting for Greg to get here. Something we can kind of wing it with is a topic of, who hung it up too early, who didn't. Chris, you just joined us. Give us a couple fighters that you wish, really wish would hang them up now and are afraid that they're really killing their legacy.
I'm actually worried about Roy Jones. I do want to say something about that, though, but you do see it in other sports, too. It's not just boxing. You see pretty much every sport, all the great athletes will overstay their welcome. It's just more sad in boxing because their brain is actually getting hurt, you know? But,
well, and I think one of the things, too, not to interrupt you and I'll let you finish, but, a lot of sports like football or baseball or whatever, they end up getting cut. Boxing, nobody forces you to retire. If you're not good enough in football or baseball, they'll just cut you no matter how good you were. So, sorry, go ahead and continue.
Yeah, that's true. I totally agree, but everyone tries to milk out as much as they possibly can, and you see it in averages of baseball players and points per game of basketball players, but it is sad to see someone like Roy Jones taking the punishment he takes, and it's sad. It's more sad in boxing, I guess.
Right. Now, Carla, obviously you're a Tarver fan. What would you like to see him do?
Hello, Carla.
Hello, Chris Guns. How's it going?
Pretty good. Pretty good now that you're on the show.
All right, this is a love connection, guys. Let's stick to the topic here.
Anyway, what I'd like to do, you know what? I think that it's time to. I think it's time to hang him up. I think that if he's not continuing to go, and that's what I'd be curious to see. How many of these guys continue to stay in the game because of money? The financial aspect of things. I think it's time for him to hang it up. If he doesn't have the Showtime gig to fall back on, like they said during the hearing. They sort of lectured him at one point and said, you know what, you need to find something else to do. And I would have to agree with the California, State Athletic Commission on that one.
Now, Jeff, do you think, if the pension fund, they had the thing last week with the WBC, do you think if there was a successful pension fund in place, a lot of these guys who fight for lack of money, do you think something like that being installed would maybe get some of them out of the ring and instead of them, keep trying to fight to make another buck?
Yeah, of course. But the boxing pension thing is so hard to actually, you gotta come up with some type of format that can work for everyone. Because how can you have a guy who has maybe one fight, goes out there and gets crippled for the rest of his life? Do you take care of him? Do you have another guy that had a long career, and basically stayed in the game too long, but of course he fought a long time and had a brilliant career, made a ton of money, and then he gets hurt. I mean, who do you? That's what I'm saying. There's no. I don't know where the ground moves are. I don't know what the ramifications where you start. I mean, is it a guy? Do we have 30 fights? Is there a guy who has 10 fights? You know, because if you have 10 fights, you really haven't made no money to put into.
And then what do you do with a guy like Evander Holyfield, for example, who's made millions and millions and millions of dollars, and basically through his own fault lost all his money? You going to take care of him as well?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I don't understand where the boundaries are. I don't understand. And most of these, and I'm going to be honest, most of these organizations that have been out there, I mean, there are some now that are actually doing something, but there's also been a lot of them that have just been BSing and getting money from people and things like that, and doing all these events and bringing these people around just to raise money, but to raise money for themselves.
What do you think, Jeff, about, do you think Roy would quit, though? I think he's just more addicted to the limelight and to have a fight, to actually fight. I don't think people know how to relate to anything else besides boxing when they've been doing it for so long. I think it's just hard to find anything that's going to give him what he wants out of life. I don't think he would do anything if they had a pension fund, or I think just people are addicted to the lifestyle of being a fighter.
Well, I mean, at some point in time, the alarm clock got to go off. You know, I mean, that's just reality. It's just like anything else in life. I mean, at some point in time, we all get old. You know, and I mean, it's just a matter of some of us don't accept it, but the reality is that it is what it is, whether you accept it or not. The ailments, the stuff that come with coming, the things that come, that's a part of becoming older, they're going to happen to you. So nobody will care about how great a fighter you was, and this, that, and so on and so forth, because at the end of the day, you're over the hill. You're over the hill, and it's time to go. And I mean, and like I said, and Roy, he's making a mockery of himself.
Hey, let's go around the horn here. I'll mention a couple fighters that may or may not have overstayed their welcome, and you guys tell me if you think they did and what the ultimate legacy will be, if it hurt them or not. So Jeff, I'll just start with you. Let's start with Mike Tyson. Did he stick around too long, and how will he be remembered, for the good or the bad?
Well, I think with Mike Tyson, even though he stayed around, I don't think he stayed around too long. I think, because of what happened to him, he was forced to stay in the sport. I think, realistically, Mike Tyson was done with boxing a long time ago. In his heart, he's been done with boxing. But once he went into the situation where just tax thing, and it's the only option he had. He had no other option. But his heart was not in boxing. Just to make money, that's what he did, because that's the only way he knew how to make money.
All right. Let's go with Elliot. Elliot, I'll throw out there for you. Let's go Evander Holyfield.
Yeah, those were one of the fighters that I had in my mind. The other was Roy Boy Compass. But Holyfield, he's at least 12, 13 years past his prime, maybe even more than that. And I believe the same as anyone else, that the reason he's only staying in the sport is because of the money. He just lost his mansion about a month ago. He has about 10 kids or more. So I don't think his heart is in it. I just think that he's there to pay his child support and whatever other bills that he has. And I find it kind of sad, because Holyfield, for me at least, he stood for more than that. Especially in the 90s when, they said that he couldn't beat the big heavyweights. He came from the cruiserweight. He was about $179 in the Olympics, and he was beating these big monsters at the heavyweight division. So for me to see that, it's sad, and I hope he leaves, but I just don't know if he's going to listen.
Elliot, let's let you throw it out there for Chris. Give Chris. We talked about Roy Jones. Give him. Think of another fighter you can throw at him. Get his thoughts on that.
James Toney.
There you go. All right, Chris, James Toney.
I'd like to see James give it up too, but I think I mean, he's just addicted to fighting. There's nothing that's going to make him stop. He's looking for fights in the MMA. He just loves fighting, and that's how he sees himself. I would like to see him retire, but you just can't do it. I don't know if they should have a forced retirement age, but then there's people like Bernard Hopkins who still can fight someone like Pascal and probably beat him. You know, you just don't know. I don't know what kind of test that they could put into the game, but I don't think anything's going to stop it. It's not a sport that looks out for the best interests of the athletes that did it, and there's nothing you can do about it. I guess people tried, but just can't do anything about it. James Toney's a fighter, and he's going to fight till he can't fight no more.
Now, Carla, you're a girl softball, you're a softball. Rocky Balboa.
You're telling me a softball. I was actually going to piggyback off of James Toney after the recent documentary that they had on him, you know, and the long-term effects of the pituitary gland, et cetera. And James Toney was one of the boxers that was actually featured on there. And so he's already having long-term effects of fighting, and no one's there. You know, at some point, when do the people in your corner call uncle? You know what I mean? Like,
well, so,
yeah,
you're
and then he
not
also
about
has
James
issues with
Toney.
testosterone.
You're trying to make your own rules there. What's up with that? So your fighter was Rocky Balboa. After the Ivan Drago, did he go on too long? Tommy Gunn, was that necessary? What do you think he did with his legacy, keep him going?
You know, it's funny, Alex.
All right, Chris, you throw Carl out one, and then we'll go the other way.
All right.
Who else should we talk?
Just think about Bernard Hopkins the game. What do you think?
Who's
Carla?
that? Someone throw one out for her.
Carla, what do you think about Bernard Hopkins?
What do I think about Bernard Hopkins?
Still performing
I think that Bernard Hopkins, you know what? I think that he does a really good job when he does get into the game and he does his commentary work. I think that that's what he should do. I think that, he should stay into that. And he gets called out easily. I'll put it that way. And he needs to just stay in his lane and do his commentary work. I don't think that Roy Jones should do commentary anymore. I've never thought that he's been good at that. I think Bernard Hopkins is. I think that he is not the wild card that he used to be, but certain people can push his buttons. And he needs to just stay in his lane. He needs to also retire. He's been in it too long, too long. And the comebacks are they're not in favor of him, put it that way.
But even though he's performing at such a high level, I mean, he is fighting everybody. He fought a decent fight against Chad Dawson. He did lose it, but he still won.
Yeah.
He beat Pascal before that, did push-ups while doing it. How do you tell a man like that they have to leave if they could still beat 28, 29, 30-year-old man?
Again, he's almost 50 years old. In a couple of years or so, he's almost 50 years old. And it's just like the example I just gave it with James Toney. Someone doesn't have to tell you that, and you just said it. James Toney's a fighter, and obviously so is Bernard Hopkins, but you have to consider the long-term effects. At some point, someone, if they're not going to do it for you, like you said, the sport of boxing does not look out for you, someone in your corner has to look out for your best interest and call uncle. He needs to retire. He's almost 50 years old.
Now, hey, Jeff, on the other side of the coin, everybody talks about they wish that, people like Holyfield, Jones, et cetera, would retire. But then, when an elite boxer does hang them up in their prime, we always clamor for them to come back. And, are they going to fight again? Even years after they might be done. I mean, it was just a year or two ago people still thought George Foreman was going to still fight. So, who are some of the fighters that you thought really, really retired at the, maybe too early and you would have liked to have seen them go for a little bit longer?
I'll have to say Joe Calzaghe. Joe Calzaghe, I mean, he retired right after he beat, I think, Roy Jones, actually. And he left the sport right when the Super Six was a little bit after the Super Six. And I would have liked to see him continue and to see what he could have done with, Andre Ward and maybe even Chad Dawson. I think that Joe Calzaghe left the sport way too early.
But do you think he left because...
He was 30s.
Yeah, I know, but he still had it. He still had it. He didn't show any weaknesses, and he didn't slow down. He was still throwing 100 punches per round.
So you don't think it's a great thing that he called the terms of his own career? Yeah, I mean, why stay in past it when someone like Andre Ward could come along and wouldn't have necessarily beat him or had an easy time beating him a couple of years ago? Why stick around when?
Because he was talking trash not long ago, saying that he could beat Andre Ward. So that tells me, okay, if you could beat him, then you should have stayed a little bit longer for the Super 6, maybe even been involved in the Super 6. So that's the only reason I say that, is because he's coming out and saying he could beat this fighter and that fighter. And
but see, that's the thing that doesn't Calzaghe get a lot of the same criticism that Floyd does, with people saying, that he was more worried about his record than necessarily beating the best fighters out there. So, he kind of retired, knowing that there was a few names out there that he wouldn't have to fight, and if he had, he might not, keep his record intact.
He did fight. He fought some good fighters, though. Especially at the end of his team. Started Jeff Lacey, dangerous guy. Yeah.
Jeff, who are some fighters that you either think retired perfectly, or that like I said, you'd like to see them gone on a fight or two more?
Well, I mean, to be honest, me personally, I think any fighter that quits, whenever they quit, especially if they quit before they, especially if they were a good fighter or a great fighter, and they retire long before, the fighters like a Leonard or like a Hearns or, these guys who are actually great fighters, and then they just, stay for the money or stay for the fame or whatever the case may be. But, I think that any fighter that retires, whether he's undefeated or whether he just decides it's time to check, to check out, and I think it's always better to do it sooner than later.
Mm-hmm. Now, you and I are the only ones, the only real fighters of the ones on the phone right now. Tell the guys in the listeners, when you decided to hang them up, what was that moment that that clicked in your head, and you said, okay, I'm done fighting. I can't get in the ring anymore?
Well, I mean, basically with me, I left on my own terms, just like I came in on my own terms. It wasn't that I couldn't fight because I was still 32 years old when I retired. So I had no problem with walking away from the sport at all. Basically, I designed my own retirement. I talked to Top Rank. At that time, Floyd was with Top Rank. I talked to Top Rank about possibly putting together a card in our hometown. And it was a card with me, featuring me, Roger, and Lil Floyd. And basically, to me, that was the perfect challenge for me to walk away from the sport. This is where it started, and this is where I wanted to end. The same people who see me, in the Golden Gloves, all the way up to the pro ranks, and basically, I think that for me, it was the perfect retirement for me, and on that night, I knew that was my last fight. I knew it in my heart because I put it together myself. That's the way I wanted it to end.
All right, well,
hey, Jeff, I want to ask you a question.
Go ahead, Elliot.
I'm sorry, Jeff, I want to ask you a question. Your nephew, Floyd Mayweather, right now, he's 35, going on 36, undefeated, the best fighter in the world, pound for pound. Would you like to see him retire sooner rather than later? And because if he retires anytime soon, so that's going to be like one of the best legacies ever for any fighter.
Oh, definitely. To be honest, I would like to see Floyd fight maybe one or two more fights, and that's it. I don't want to see him stay around just to try to prove point to people, and then people say, oh, this guy would have beaten him. Who cares? Because at the end of the day, everybody they put in front of him couldn't do it. And so all the time, no matter what, they always create somebody new. There was one time when it was like, okay, he's afraid of Margarito. Margarito gets beat by Paul Williams. He's afraid of Paul Williams. Paul Williams gets beat by Quintana. So every time they created someone that was supposed to beat Floyd, they ended up getting beat by somebody a whole lot lesser than Floyd. So, it's one of those things that you can't satisfy everybody. And just like this Manny thing, I think pretty much everybody knows what's going to happen if the fight does happen. Don't get me wrong. The only thing that's important that it happened is because there was a time when Manny Pacquiao, when people actually honestly thought he had a chance. When he went through this phase of, running through this fighter, that fighter. But Manny Pacquiao ain't done nothing in a year. And I ain't talking about with his inactivity. I'm talking about his fight. I mean, he hasn't done anything. He pretty much lost to Marquez, and everybody knows that. And the fight with Shane Mosley, they act like they were boyfriend and girlfriend. I mean, they were so friendly, tapping each other's glove after every punch thrown. The fight with Margarito, that was the last exciting fight that he had. But like I said, so it's one of those situations where, people are trying to, in a sense, they create somebody that's supposed to be able to stop you because nobody likes to see an undefeated fighter. It's just like, I think Lennox Lewis did the right thing. He did the perfect thing when he walked away from the sport. And, it don't have to be nothing about, being undefeated and walking away from the sport. I think that when the time is right, it's the time is right. And I think that, like I said, whether Floyd wins or loses his next fight, I think that maybe two, maybe 3 fights at the most should be the end of his career, whether he win or whether he lose.
Now, you had said you wouldn't mind to see him, retire after 1 or 2 more fights. If one of those fights did not involve Manny Pacquiao, would you still be okay with that?
If what?
If one of those, 1 or 2 fights did not involve Pacquiao, we talked earlier about, affecting his legacy, would you be okay with that if he fought 1 or 2 more times and he didn't fight him in either one of them?
Of course, because at the end of the day, Manny Pacquiao don't dictate what happened with Floyd's career. At the end of the day, Floyd already offered him $40 million. He didn't choose to take it. That fight should have already been done and over with. So what if Manny Pacquiao all of a sudden now he wants to fight? Who cares? Only people care is that people who, that Manny Pacquiao fans.
Now, Manny, Floyd better than the rest of us, obviously. The one thing that's pretty clear is he definitely likes attention, being a star. Are you worried that, when it's all said and done, his career does come to an end, do you wonder how he's going to handle, not being necessarily in front of the camera and in the limelight all the time, or do you think he's got a good plan going forward?
No, I think the one thing is that when it comes to Floyd, you got to realize Floyd's transcendent boxing. Floyd is a quote-unquote celebrity, whether he's boxing or not. So no matter where Floyd goes, he's still going to get the same type of following. He don't need to be in the ring to get that.
Right.
So, it's just a matter of, I don't know exactly what he's going to do. Hopefully he'll just, he'll start, taking promoting seriously. He has a promotional company and, and start actually being the head guy and calling the shots over his promotional company. That's what I would hope.
And De La Hoya, he's obviously shown that, you can stay, in the limelight, even if you're not fighting, with Golden Boy. Guys, we just got a few minutes left. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up here in an hour. Unfortunately, we couldn't get Greg Haugen on tonight. Let's just go around the table. Anything else you want to bring up? Carl, I know you're ready to get off here. Anything else you want to discuss tonight?
You know what? I did have a question for Jeff, and I wanted to ask him, speaking of Roy Jones, Bernard Hopkins, et cetera, all those guys that, are able to segue into their commentary jobs and things like that, is there any particular reason why, or what are your thoughts on those guys that don't go into training? Because, obviously they have longevity, so they have some skill sets and things like that. They'd still be connected with the, with the game, and then they'd also still, be able to generate some income. Is there any particular reason why they don't go that direction?
Well, I think that in some cases it's just probably, once a guy who believes that he probably was a big star in the sport, the large commodity in the sport, sometimes they probably feel that that's beneath them, unless that's just in their hearts, because it's almost like that's something that you do if you didn't make it. You know what I'm saying? That's almost like okay, if you were a baseball player, you become or a baseball coach, or you have some job that's aligned with baseball. And boxing is the same way. If you don't make it, that's your alternative. You know, is to give back.
Well, but look at Pernell Whitaker. You know, I mean, he was training Zab Judah at one point. I mean, that would definitely be someone I would consider that had made it.
No, don't get me wrong. You see how long it took for Pernell to start trying to train fighters? After he was broke, he started trying to train fighters. He didn't train fighters, you know, while he was in his prime. He didn't train fighters right after he retired. Because that was beneath him. But when it becomes the only source of income, and you know you have the knowledge and the wisdom to get back to other fighters, I mean, it's a given. You should anyway. You know, I'm not necessarily saying that, you know, every fighter that has fought and has been a great fighter, because a lot of great fighters don't even make good trainers. You know, because a lot of them try to just turn someone else into them. And you can't turn someone into you that don't have the same skill set as you. So, but I just think that, you know, a lot of times that, you know, like I said, fighters that have, you know, became marquee fighters, really, really big name fighters, I mean, it's almost like it's beneath them.
I think I just created a segment here. We're going to call this, you know, one more thing. We'll end every show with this. Elliot, one more thing from you. What do you got?
Yeah, I agree with Jeff. You know, there's a lot of elite fighters that after they retire, they just don't go into training. You know, it's really a few that do it. I mean, if you look down the list, you maybe have Buddy McGirt, and then before that, you got to go all the way back to maybe Emil Griffith, who trained a couple fighters to world titles like Juan Laporte. I mean, and maybe Archie Moore. But there's just not too many, you know, great fighters that actually, you know, not great fighters. I want to take that back, but just not fighters that won titles, you know, that just don't have it in them to become trainers.
Chris, go ahead.
Really have nothing more to add. You guys said it all.
Well, thanks for that contribution. All right, Jeff. I know you always have something eloquent to say at the end of the show. You're not going to say bye, are you? Let's hear one more thing from you.
Bye.
I want to know how's Jeff like the Contender? How you like being on Roy Nelson's team?
The Ultimate Fighter, not the Contender, boxing boy.
There you go, Chris.
Yeah, tell us about Sylvester Stallone and Sugar Ray Leonard. What do they like to work with on the Contender there, Jeff?
I don't know about that. You had to call Steve Force for that.
No, how is that, Jeff? How is the Ultimate? Yeah, just give us a second on the Ultimate Fighter. What's that been like?
Ultimate
Watching
Fighter.
yourself and being on the show.
I mean, being on the show, I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I watched only one set, and I think I got seen for like about 10 seconds. But I know that I'm there, so it's no big deal to me. I mean, it was fun though. I mean, it was a fun experience. I mean, you know, I felt that, you know, some of the guys on there, I mean, I made pretty good friendships with, and then some of the guys on there became backstabbers. So, you know, it's just one of those situations that, you know, I mean, most importantly to me is that I had great relationships with every coach that was a part of the show, you know, and at the end of the day, I mean, those are relationships that I know that I'm going to keep and that, you know, I'll probably have for a lifetime.
Right. So, well, the one thing for sure, I think, you know, should Roy defeat Carwin when they meet, I think you're going to become pretty hot in MMA circles, and you know, obviously everyone knows you in boxing, but I think, you know, you got a lot to look forward to in the MMA world. You know, so far, you know, the guys you work with have been really successful, so, you know, here's hoping Roy does well, and like I said, you start making your name in MMA. All right, let's just go around, everybody. Go ahead. What?
I said it'll be hot like Carla.
Well, I can't even bring Carl on here. All our guests, good thing. I don't think I had to keep Greg off the show because I was worried he tried to run away with her. Last week we had Josh Lewis from Repo Games trying to run off with her, so, you know, we kind of be careful who we bring on.
And I don't know, this is that sexy boy.
What's that?
I said Chris uses that sexy voice.
Say the right thing.
You like that, Jeff?
I don't know what's going on here.
I think Chris probably records his voice and he tries to do the sexy thing for when he calls the women. He wants to be that. Or maybe he's gonna do some male phone sex chatting, something like that with the voice.
I listen to a little before I interview.
All right, Carla, where can the folks? Carla, where can the folks keep up with you on social media and all that kind of stuff and what you got going on?
On social media, on Twitter and on Instagram, and both are The Real Carla J.
Yeah, there are imposters out there, so you definitely need to make sure it's The Real Carla J.
The Real Carla J. That's right.
All right. Anything else to plug or promote?
Looking for, I don't know, you guys just stay tuned for, I have some, pretty cool interviews and things like that coming up with, with my radio show, and also I have some, on-camera interviews that are coming out within the next couple of weeks, and both shows, radio show and the YouTube TV show. Also, both of them are called, both of them are called the same thing. Hold on one second.
Oh, she got to take a call.
Good for you, Carla.
Put us on hold. Let's go ahead and pause the show till Carla gets back. Yeah, but you can keep up with her stuff on Pro Boxing Insider and Pro MMA Insider. We'll have all her latest stuff going on there. You back with us, Carla?
No,
all right, we'll move on to Elliot. Elliot, what do you got going on? Where can the folks follow you?
Yeah, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Vicious Vasquez. Also, me and Chris, we have the boxing polls thing going. We have a lot of we just post a lot of interviews. So if you guys want to go to our community page and like us, you'll see all the interviews we have with Pro Boxing Insider, and you can go ahead and comment on that. And we also have a Facebook group, the Boxing Poll, so ask to join. And that's about it.
Chris?
I would like to say that you can follow me on Twitter at Chris2Guns.
There's that voice. Oh, my gosh.
For $2.99 a minute, you can call him at 1-800-CHRIS-GUNS.
Oh, man.
Carla's welcome to call.
Oh, I am. Thank you.
She gets 10% off, right?
My earpiece died. My earpiece died. I had to freaking shut it off so I could, come back, so.
Well, we paused the show for you.
Chris.
I'll tell you that I am going to get an Instagram going. Carla saying that reminded me. Instagram's important.
Yeah, you got to hit me up. Yeah, Instagram, The Real Carla J. And look out for my shows. The Sound Off.
We're going to work on Jeff is having so much fun with Twitter that we're going to work on his Instagram because I know he just can't get enough of the social media. We're going to get him, LinkedIn and whatever else stumble upon and whatever else we can do because he can't get enough of the social media stuff, right, Jeff?
Can you imagine Jeff with a photo shoot?
I had to drag Jeff kicking and screaming into Twitter, but he gets on there once in a while. So, Jeff, do you want me to do the honors, or where can the folks follow you?
I don't know. I want nobody to know why.
Jeff doesn't want anyone following him. He probably doesn't even know. He's on Twitter at Jeff Mayweather 1. We got the Facebook page, Jeff Mayweather's Pro Boxing Insider, and of course the websites ProBoxingInsider.com and ProMMAinsider.com. First show, a little bit of a mess. I apologize for that. We'll try to get Greg Haugen rescheduled for next week. Appreciate y'all joining us, and thanks to Carla, Eliud, Chris, and of course Jeff. And anyone else got anything to say before we sign off here?
PBI Radio.
Yeah. That's all. All right, guys. We will talk to you all next week, and thanks for joining us.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Carla. You hear the clock ticking? You about to stop living. I want you to remember me. but the dead don't have no memory. I'm coming. Nobody can stop me, nobody can hold me, nobody control me. I'm coming. I'm here to do my thing, I'm here to bring the pain. I'm never ever gonna change. I'm coming. Nobody can stop me, nobody can hold me, nobody control me. I'm coming. I'm here to do my thing, I'm here to bring the pain. I'm never ever gonna change. Like Tropicana, I got the juice. All for the least, let the dog loose. Don't make me call up the crew.